Hi. Today I want to share with you something that is very personal with me. This podcast I'm going to call Lies, Damn Lies and Imagination. Martin and I were discussing this kind of topic earlier on, and we both have the similar but different take on it. Anyway, I'm going to share this with you. If I can stop my hiccups. So, it's really something I've never talked about publicly, but it's the root of why I'm so interested in how the mind lies to us. It's also the first time I experienced what we now understand as trauma-induced memory distortion, or PTSD. When I was a child, I saw my sister get run over by a truck. Yes. At the time, I didn't have the capacity, neurologically, emotionally or developmentally, to make sense of the event. And so my mind did something very human, very biological, if you like. It filled the gaps with a version I could actually bear. What I remembered for years wasn't what happened. It was what my nervous system allowed me to remember. This might sound strange, but this is one of the central difficulties with PTSD. Traumatic memories aren't stored like ordinary memories. They're fragmentary, they're sensory, they're distorted by stress hormones. And when the brain can't process an overwhelming event, it improvises. It creates an internal narrative that feels coherent, even if parts of it aren't true. For example, I turned winter into summer. My fabricated story was set in summertime, when the actual event happened in winter, in the snow. We don't intentionally make it untrue, but psychologically it is necessary. Our psyche needs to have something to hang on to that makes sense of things not intentionally untrue, but psychologically necessary. We do this because we cannot bear what the reality is, so we create a believable story instead. This is what I mean when we say we lie to ourselves. Not in a moral sense, in a biological one. The brain's first priority is to survive, it's survival. It's not for accuracy, it is for survival. It's not for truth, it's for survival. Because sometimes truth and accuracy would break you. Spinoza would call this the conatus, the will to life, the drive to persist. Modern psychology, neuroscience and trauma research align very closely with this. Under extreme stress, the brain suppresses, alters, or replaces aspects of reality to maintain functioning. I wanted to see what the truth was. Not the real truth, but how I had manipulated the truth. This is the reason I came into psychology, because I was interested in finding out what worked for me, why I was doing things to myself, and it was a natural part of also exploring philosophy, especially when I found Spinoza, who I really admire. Anyway, modern research on traumatic memory shows that during traumatic events, the hippocampus, which is the part responsible for organising memory, is disrupted. The amygdala is overactive and stores sensory fragments, sounds, smells, flashes of imagery. So it constructs a new story from the images that it has created, and it's created it with bearable images and obliterated or put to the back those it cannot bear. So we also have cortisol and adrenaline, which also interfere with the formation of coherent narratives. That's why so many people who do something say they don't remember. They've done, if something has happened to them, it's been traumatic and very difficult to bear, the memory has been put to one side and been replaced with a false memory that is more tolerable. Okay. Because afterwards the brain fills in the missing information with plausible and protective interpretations. This is one reason that people with PTSD have memories that feel intensely real, yet are incomplete, shifted, or even partially imagined. it's again not because they're lying, but because their mind was trying to protect them. And this is the important part. This mechanism doesn't only operate during major trauma, it operates all the time. Memory and imagination rely on the same neural networks. When something is unclear, frightening, uncertain, or socially risky, the brain does the same thing. It fills the gaps. So some examples of that are when you think you remember something someone said, but you mostly remember how it felt to you. They might have a completely different story. Or when you're sure about an event, but it's been sort of unconsciously edited for coherence, for you to understand it. You might get things like in the police cells, how they split two suspects. If there are two suspects in a crime, they will split them. They will get them to do independent stories, because then they won't add a cohesive story. So they'll get bits from one, bits from another. Eventually they'll be able to piece together the full story. And they do this with victims as well. They won't let you talk to anyone else because they want to try and piece together the true story from all the edited bits. Another thing we do is we believe our own explanations because it solves our moments of fear or shame. You can retell a story for years until the detail emerges that contradicts everything. This happened to me. When I went to a therapist years and years ago, they made me draw the situation. And what was interesting is that the situation I drew, because you talk about left brain, right brain, which one can lie, all the rest of it. There are different parts of the brain that do different functions. But the picture I drew was nothing like the story I was telling. So, this is what happens. We leak everywhere. We can't help it. We leak everywhere. So, of course, we swear we're truthful. We think we're truthful. I thought I was truthful. But part of the memory was reconstructed, or even all the memory. And because these reconstructions feel true, we experience them as truth. That's why people pass polygraph tests. A polygraph doesn't detect lies. It detects physiological stress. If your brain's rewritten a memory in a way that no longer feels threatening or feels like a lie or feels shameful, there's no stress response. So the machine reads the truth as you believe it because your body believes it. It's not conscious that we do this, but it's deeply embedded in us. We have no control over it. We think we have control and we don't. We're just puppets of the survival drive. But, this is where realism becomes important, not as a philosophy, but as a psychological practice. Reality isn't obvious. Our experiences aren't clean, our memories aren't reliable, our interpretations aren't objective. They are reconstructions, constantly updated, adjusted and defended by the conatus. Realism, as we do, is learning to see this process while it's happening.